Was siehst du?
Was könnte das sein?
Hi, I'm Jenny, and 2 weeks ago on my birthday, my husband surprised me with a new watch. I had no idea what I was getting because he told me that I was getting something off of Amazon. So yeah, if you want to see the full clip, just watch until the end of this video. So today I want to show you the Rolex Oyster Perpetual 36 in candy pink because I got quite a lot of questions from you about the new Oyster Perpetuals in general and also the new dial colors. So in this video I want to show you exactly how the new Rolex Oyster Perpetual candy pink looks like, how it compares to the old Oyster Perpetual and the Datejust, and my take on the controversial pink dial color at the end. So before we start to see where the similarities and differences are, let's take a quick look at the specs and give you an overview of the 2020 release Rolex Oyster Perpetual, more specifically the candy pink dial version. So what we have here is the 36mm Oyster Perpetual with a lug-to-lug of 44mm and a case that is 12mm thick. All of these measurements let you know that this watch and its dimensions make it wearable for almost any wrist, and as you can see here, it fits my 150mm or 5.9-inch wrist too, but size-wise it would also fit my husband's wrist as well. Given its reference number, which is the 126000, we have the updated automatic Rolex in-house Calibre 3230 ticking inside with a more efficient gear train and a high-capacity barrel that can hold a power reserve of 70 hours, so you can put it down on Friday and it will be good to go on a Monday without wearing it over the weekend. This one is also a superlative chronometer, as it states on the dial, which obtained a COSC certification, giving it an accuracy of ±2 seconds per day. The case sits on an Oyster bracelet, which has a brushed finish and is made from 904 Elle steel that ends in an oyster clasp, which now comes with a 5mm easy link adjustment on the new Oyster Perpetual, so you can finally make it fit to your wrist perfectly without using any tools. Though it is not specified on the dial, it has a water resistance of 100 meters, so taking this one for a swim is no problem as well. The highlight here is definitely the dial. Rolex specifically calls it candy pink on the website, though I've seen some people call it the cherry blossom too. It is a very light pink lacquer dial, and when you look close enough you can see a very fine structure on the dial. Though the dial surface has been polished, it doesn't come off as too shiny, I would say, which combined with the color gives it a very chalk-like appearance. And on a quick note regarding Rolex and colorful dials, this isn't something new. It's not Rolex straying off the beaten path. They've done this before, literally decades ago. In the 70s and 80s, Rolex came out with their Stella dials on the Day-Date and a few Datejust. They were initially designed to target the Middle Eastern and Asia market, but pretty much flopped because only very few people at the time enjoyed these dials, and it seems that it also wasn't the right fit putting these colors into the Day-Date in the first place either. Many of you are probably wondering how the new releases compare to the previous Oyster Perpetuals, and if it is even worth looking into the latest LP, or if at the end of the day it just comes down to whether or not you want a bright dial color or not. So let's put them next to each other. If you want to talk about significant changes, then we should focus on the main 4 things that are different now with the new Oyster Perpetuals. And a little FYI, since the LP was first introduced in 2008, Rolex has released many different dial variations, colors and finishing, so for this I mainly focus on the standard configurations. Let's start with the most obvious, the dial colors. Like I've mentioned in my video about the Rolex releases, they have introduced a handful of new colors and discontinued a couple too, including the entire size, which was the 39mm range. People are especially sad to see the white and black dial go, not only because those are very popular colors, but also because they've only been introduced in 2018. So now we have the additional Stella-inspired OPs in different sizes up to 41mm, including this beautiful candy pink, turquoise, bright yellow, coral red, green, and a silver gold mix. Right on the dial is where we can find the next changes, though the Kit Kat hour markers have been a thing before with the below 39mm sizes. They're now also present in the biggest Oyster Perpetual, the 41mm, as well as the 36mm. They're now also filled with chromolite instead of superluminovas, so we have this nice blue glow when it gets dark. Additionally, Rolex has gotten rid of the tiny Arabic numerals right next to the hour markers and transferred their minute marking design from the previous 31mm size to the rest of the current collection. So now we have no Arabic numerals, but tiny squares paired with stick minute markings for the 36 and 41mm OPs, whereas the smaller sizes like the 34 and 31 and 28mm have either just the tiny minute sticks or small Roman numerals next to the hour markers. Something not many people notice is the change to the case. Just like the Submariner, the Oyster case on the Oyster Perpetual also received an update. As you can see here, you get the arguably more refined case with the slightly tapered lugs, which might not be a big deal for some, but I think it makes the case appear a smidge more elegant. Many people also complained about the OPs not having a quick adjustment on the bracelet or clasp, so as mentioned before, Rolex fixed that now and we got the 5mm Easy Link on the OPs, which are basically the entry-level Rolex line. The biggest, though the probably most overlooked but important update has been to the Calibre. Rolex has used their Calibre 3130 for their previous Oyster Perpetuals, the same movement they've also built into the old no-date Submariner. But now we can enjoy the Calibre 3230 with an improved power reserve of circa 70 hours instead of the 48 hours from before, and like I've mentioned, the improved gear train, the new parachrome spring, for example, making the entire watch more shock resistant than ever before. So now that we know how it compares to the old Oyster Perpetual 36, let's have a quick look at the seemingly similar Datejust 36 and compare it to the new Oyster Perpetual, as many of you were interested in that comparison too. Well, looks-wise, you have way more options with the Datejust compared to the Oyster Perpetual. You get way more dial variations. You can choose between a fluted white gold or a dome bezel or even a diamond set one. You can choose between a Jubilee or Oyster bracelet, and you also have a full gold or two-tone options if that is what you like. You obviously also have a date on it, and I have to say that the Datejust itself feels, though the measurements are very similar, like an entirely different watch compared to the OP, not only because of its heritage, but also because of how it wears and looks because of it. The Oyster Perpetual is your casual, more modern daily watch, whereas a Datejust feels much more like a classic and elegant watch, and it feels like Rolex wants to emphasize that difference by introducing these dial colors you can only find on the Oyster Perpetual, but not on the Datejust right now. Because of that, I feel that comparing the Oyster Perpetual to a Datejust is like apples and pears. It just doesn't really work. Right, so now we know how the Oyster Perpetual 36 looks like, how it wears and compares to similar and discontinued watches within the Rolex catalog. Now I want to touch on something regarding the dial color. When I posted my watch on Instagram, I've gotten so many messages about the dial color and how I think about men wearing the candy pink dial. So here's my take. This is just a dial color. If you like it, then you should wear it. The candy pink Oyster Perpetual is so much more than just a nice watch with a bright dial. It represents heritage, progression, technology, and genius marketing, and I'm a sucker for that. But what about you? What are your thoughts on the dial colors on the Oyster Perpetual in general? Would you consider a 36mm even on a bigger wrist, or do you dislike smaller cases? As always, let me know in the comments down below. And so for the 3 or 4 people who are still watching this right now, here's a little clip my husband filmed when giving me my birthday present.
So, Freunde, es ist soweit. Jenny wartet im Büro, sie weiß, dass sie es gleich bekommt, aber sie hat keine Ahnung, was es ist. Ich habe es hier, ich habe es extra nochmal schön einpacken lassen. Und ich glaube, das ist tatsächlich das Krasseste, was ich ihr je überhaupt geschenkt habe. Und ich bin ziemlich gespannt, wie sie darauf reagiert. Das ist die Tür zu unserem Büro. Oh, es ist zu hell. Ich muss die Helligkeit kurz umstellen. Da ist dein Geschenk. Warte ganz kurz.
Oh, ich sehe das aber.
Oh oh.
Hast du es doch verpacken lassen?
Ich hab's verpacken lassen.
Die Tür ist offen.
Ich weiß, ist egal.
Ich kriege sie kurz zu. Ich hasse das, wenn es offen ist.
Sie hasst es, wenn sie offen ist.
Scheiße.
Was könnte das sein?
Warte. Jetzt ist mir warm.
Brauchst du eine Schere oder so etwas?
Nein. Oh, ist das so schön? Ja, ich brauche eine Schere.
Okay, ich weiß nicht, ob wir eine haben.
Ich krieg's auch so.
Ich werde jetzt versuchen. Okay, sie kriegt's hin. Wahnsinn.
Okay. Oh nein! Oh no! Ich hab den Zettel gelegt. Oh. Oh shit. Oh, jetzt echt? Oh. 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 Spinnst du? Was ist... Oh, Baby, danke.
Bitte schön, gern geschehen. Gefällt sie dir?
Jetzt echt?
Nee, war nur ein Witz.
Oh, ich habe hier gelesen, guck.
Oh Mann, gespoilert habe ich.
Ich mach den Lünettenschutz gleich weg, gell?
Okay.